check out that gooey core of deliciousness. It's calling out to your spoon.
Chugga chugga Charles, my man. Hilda, like the new do. Got some layers in there, huh? The more the merrier. Gotta have this stuff in the morning.
Behold, the bacon portobello melt on brioche. Ah.
Hello, good evening. Wow. Oh, there we go. That's who I am. So I'm Rob Newlan, and I run the creative shop for Facebook in EMEA. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm really excited to be here. And I think this is also, for me, a really exciting time to be in our industry. An exciting time to be in the creative arts, an exciting time to be in marketing too. When I look at this, there's a few key things that are going to change. And tonight I'm just going to run you through just a few of my thoughts of how I see the creative industry evolving and the stuff that we're seeing coming through. And also just some work. We'll talk through some work as well, which I think is starting to push the way in which we're expounding out the possibilities of what we can do creatively. When I look at the world, though, at the moment, the thing that I'm so excited about being in this industry for is the possibilities it puts forward. It's a world where when you look at the possibilities that come from connections, there's so much that can come. It's a world where one person's thought can reach through to anybody, where we're more defined by how connected we are than how divided we are, where what we're doing, we have superpowers. We can look at how we can together cure disease and even start to approach problems we haven't even thought of yet. And I think that's really because we're really starting to understand the power of connections. We're starting to really get through the possibilities of what we can do when we authentically come and start to challenge things as a global community. A friend of mine posted this on Instagram the other day, and it's a post that I really agree with. And it's something I think for our industry is a big shift. It's a shift where we stop looking down on doers, and actually doers are the people who are inheriting the earth. They're the people who are taking dreams and making them reality. They're the people who are actually getting things done. And a doer mentality is the stuff where we don't have to wait 18 months to produce a piece of copy. Because actually we can have a great thought and we can test it very quickly. Creatively, there's never been a more exciting time for us to be a creative director and have our work out and people actually interacting with it and engaging with it. This is a time in which we actually are shifting the balance between how we're actually engaging with the creative ourselves as an industry, but most importantly, how people are receiving it. It's a time in which people dream outrageous dreams. And if you have the power, the will, and the intelligence to actually drive it through, you can get this done. You look at Elon Musk, and it's almost like a comic book, what he's written. When you look at the ability for him to say, I'm going to launch a car, I'm going to invent a train that can travel at 800 miles an hour between Los Angeles and San Francisco on the Hyperloop. And just for the sake of it, let's put a spaceship in there too. And it's absolutely the stuff of dreams previously. But this mentality of getting things done, this mentality of approaching the problem and thinking and really driving to actually get to delivery versus getting stopped at points at which we may have done previously, I think is a real sea change in how we approach our creative problems across the industry. And the interesting thing here is actually what this started as was approaching a problem of money. So how could you reinvent and look at the way in which money was distributed and people paid for things? And Elon was one of the first people to found PayPal. And that approach, I think, is really fascinating because it's not necessarily looking at the financial issue, it's looking at the people issue. How do you get money from one place to another more easily? How do you free up economies? And that's been happening. That's not just a technology piece, that's a people piece, that's the connections there. When you look at M-Pesa, which was launched in Kenya, And this is a way of transferring money across, but using a feature phone. Enabling money transfer as it's never been done before has allowed for a freeing up of an economy, has allowed for a freedom of movement, of travel, of opportunity. And this is what I think is exciting. This democratizing moment that we have is the same for us as it is for the industry. I think Kickstarter is an astonishing platform and excites me so much, and I spend time looking at the new platforms that are coming through, the new ideas. But this idea, of course, you need funding. The reality of doers is they need to get their ideas out there. But now it's not just big companies or big established wealthy people who can fulfill their dreams. Anybody can. You just have to be really good. And you have to understand your craft. And you have to have the passion and the will to deliver on that. And you look at things of what it then frees up and the opportunities it brings, because the access to money and the opening up of these markets then starts people to think in different ways. And you look at this idea called Kano kits. And this is astonishing when you look at it from even a couple of years ago. This is actually helping for children. And this is almost broadly a toy, but they are building a computer, the hardware of a computer, and then coding the computer, the software that sits behind it. So you think about the generation that's going to come, what we've seen as a revolution, when actually the people who are brought up on coding and they're brought up on building computers, the opportunities that creativity will afford us just keep on growing. And this is what we as an industry have the opportunity to influence. This is what we have the chance to drive forward. And start to imagine and go after things that you could never even think of what the possibilities might come from. And Shadow is this amazing app which is looking to try and harness the power of dreams. And saying, what could dreams show us? Because we haven't been able to study them, what are the opportunities that come from it? But they thought back to the problem, and part of it is collecting dreams. So actually Shadow is an amazing alarm clock, which wakes you up gradually and means that you're more likely to remember your dream. And when you capture your dream, and collectively we can look about how people are dreaming, we can unlock completely new possibilities. Imagining the unimaginable, starting to open up these possibilities, I think is truly exciting and truly revolutionary. And it means anybody can do anything. It means that someone who has the idea for a song in their head and wants to put this live has the ability to do it. And Sai, I think what you want of his music, he actually went out there and got it done. He got it put out onto the internet. And through YouTube, he was able to drive massive viewership of it. In fact, I think it's 15,000 years worth of views have come through for Gangnam Style, which is more than all the time that's been put into building Wikipedia. So think what you want of that, but it's a democratizing force. And this force of the connections, I think, only get more exciting. And this is somebody who is astonishingly famous, but I doubt many of you know who it is. This guy earned £4 million last year. And he is a games reviewer. And he's a games reviewer who, when you look at the gaming industry's grown up and it's overtaken music, and it's really challenging on the heels of the movie industry. So why should the media industry that sits around it look the same as it has before? Why isn't it about authentic people who are providing a great perspective on the world, doing things in a really authentic manner, and doing things that actually people believe in? They believe him. And so he has great authority in the market, and he earns a lot of money from it. And this is the thing where we have to look at what the possibilities are and not look back at what they were. Or even when you look at tackling amazing problems like the Pacific Drift. And the Pacific Drift is, I think, well, it's a crazy amount. It's about the size of Texas, which is this rubbish drift in the middle of the Pacific. And a 19-year-old has worked out how to solve it. A 19-year-old has looked at the problem and said, well, I think in 10 years I could take this apart. That's amazing. That's astonishing. But it's because of the connections. It's the ability to connect into the information that allow him to approach that subject. And then he starts to really tackle it. All of these opportunities afforded us now, and it's only there for us to go and take them. And then from understanding from a creative industry, how do we do that? How do we adopt these behaviors? And also, when people are doing these amazing things, how do we partner with them? And Gstar looked at this, the previous thing, and they actually worked out how to weave denim out of plastic, and they're able to make jeans from the Pacific Drift, creating a great product, be able to drive through and sell these products and help to fund some of this work to tackle this problem. Done in a really authentic way. It's an interesting way of brands actually participating in what's going on in society versus necessarily trying to shape something brand new. And we're working on a program with a number of key partners now called Internetorg. And this is looking at the possibilities of what happens when you bring the next 4.5 billion people online, when the majority of the world aren't at the moment connected to anybody. And when you bring those connections through and you give that access to information, and you give the access to the funding, what can come from that? All these possibilities lie ahead. And all of these things are open to us as a creative industry to get out there and start building and start doing. One of the aspects that I look at this is because of our age, because as a digital industry, we're very young. You look at Google's 15, we're 10, Twitter's 8, I think. We're very young. This is a formative stage of the whole process and the evolution of creativity on the platforms. So look forward about what you want to do and what we can do. Don't look back into what has been. I think people are looking and trying to form opinions off of what is happening in the digital industry, and it's changing so rapidly. I would ask you to challenge yourself to say, what can we do? What do I want to do? And what happens here, I think, is that we change our opinion when we start to shift from looking at digital and technology from the technical side of it and start to look at the humanity of it. When you start with people, when you start with who's actually using the technology and what it's enabling, you get to a really powerful place. You get to amazing insight. And of course, we've always built great work from great insight. What we now have is you have access to insight at a whole deeper level. And this is the possibility that we put out there. This is what we can do when we stop looking at just what the raw technology of it is and look at doing things in a way in which that is actually looking at the small element. When we look at just the novelty of technology, I think we miss the whole possibility of it. And this is switching from us having a focus where from brands we're trying to advertise at people, whereas actually we need to do things for them. We actually have to look at them as people we're servants of. What are we looking to do that actually can add value to their lives? This is an additive process. Advertising, adverting people's attention away from something is what we've come from. What we're trying to is moving to this place where we say, what is it that we can do for people which respects their time and adds to that moment? And it doesn't have to be deep and meaningful. This is about making people laugh, making people cry, doing the stuff we've always been able to do. Stories well told, well put together, well crafted. But equally, it might be for somebody at that moment, they don't have very much money. And if you can target them a really appropriate, relevant coupon, you're adding to that moment. You're providing the right thing in front of them. But it allows us, means we have to start from the technology, from the people behind it, not the technology. And this is about us respecting people's time. Understanding that as much as we might want them to spend 10 minutes with us, they maybe only have a minute. So what are we going to do to make that minute the most valuable minute? And we've all built big microsites and great big immersive experiences, which theoretically sound fantastic. But the reality is that people aren't going there. That's not what people are looking to do. People are spending most of their time in the platforms on their phones. People spend about 25% of all their time on a phone on Facebook. And when that's 19 million people on a daily basis, that's an astonishing number. You're making real leaps forward as far as how we can actually access people. And one of the other things that I look at, and it's lots of talk at the moment, is big data. And big data has been this thing which has been lofty and huge and terrifying, and something which other people have been responsible for. But I think if we look at big data, if the creative industry looks at big data, I think it starts to shift the power here. Because I also think there's an amazing possibility that comes from it. I think this is where we can start to really revolutionize what we do. But we have to do it on a daily basis. We have to be on top of it. We have to be as comfortable with talking about data and the insights and be able to drive into the core humanity behind the data. And then from there, we can create really, truly powerful work. But we have to be on top of this. This isn't something, again, from a previous model where you'd get a research report once a month and maybe flick through it or maybe not, or it's someone else's problem. This is everyone's role. And because people see things in a different way, we have the possibility to look at numbers and look at the information and craft different responses to it. And this massive technological revolution that we've been through, I think, is this shift where we've got a few things that appeal to many, and we've got lots of briefs of let's go and target 18 to 24-year-old guys. And when you have a brief that broad, well, then you have to create a very broad insight. And when you create a very broad insight, you have to create very broad work to actually service that broad insight. Whereas actually, when everything's built around me, I expect the work, when I arrive there from a brand, I expect that experience to be understanding and knowing of me and relevant to me. And we can do this. The ability for us to actually stop and say, we expect more. People expect more of what we do as brands. And we have this chance to actually make this shift forward because it is about doing what we've always done well. We've always drawn great insights. We've always told great stories. We always made great films, produced great craft. We have to respond in a way in which is actually going to deliver something meaningful and make this shift forward. Because people have the power now. People have the power to cross out your ad or just whiz on past your ad because they're seeing it in their feed. So if it isn't interesting to them, if it isn't relevant to them, if it isn't respecting their time, they won't respect the work and they will just drive on past it. And we have the opportunity with mobile to say, you know what, this is a massive shift. This is something which is fundamental and it's exciting. The possibilities that come from it are great. But equally, it means that our competitive set has changed. Our competitive set has changed to everything. Everything competes with everything. And it means that when people are at home and they're choosing what to watch, they can pick that from a past catalogue of whatever has been. And that's great. But equally, that sets an onus on us to say, well, when we're talking and when brands are putting themselves forward and when we're crafting work with them, you know what, it better be pretty good because we've actually, that's our competition. And when you look at it in that way and when that becomes the bar, creatively, that's what we can get behind. Because creatively, that's something which is really compelling. And it's not chasing likes, and it's not chasing social metrics. And it's not about always on and producing things 7 days a week and throwing loads of stuff out there and hoping someone might see it. It's being choiceful about this. Because when you look at, and I get asked this question a lot, wherever I am around the world, is what's the best ad on Facebook? And the answer is very, very simple, is who's Facebook? And there's 1.3 billion people actively on the platform, spending more and more time. And when they're spending more and more time, well, then actually there's the onus on us to make sure we're respecting that time. And therefore thinking about the possibilities for us as an industry to say, okay, we might need to make a few alterations. And some of them can be big, and some of them are just steps forward into this. But all of it starts to respect the people and what they see. And what has been, and when we look at lots of people, when they think about social, they think about meme-type content and work which, you know what, it's funny and it's now part of our lives, but it's not necessarily what is our creative benchmark as brands. This isn't something that I would put ourselves against unless you run a pet food brand, but this isn't something creatively that is the bar. The bar is that everything competes with everything and that we have the opportunity to talk to millions of people on a daily basis in a really profound way. And this has shifted, and again, we talk about how formative this is an industry. But the reality is very true. Good design is good business. Good craft matters. Good work is what people are going to respond to. People will respond to the stuff that we've always done brilliantly. The great use of imagery, the great use of film, the great use of copy, stuff that opens up people's hearts and minds. That's true in mobile as it is on a poster site. But the reality is that people are now spending more and more time on their phones, and that's where their focus of attention is. So if we can do something that brings this craft and puts it into a phone, then you know what? We're starting to get there. And this is a journey for us, and this is so rapid. I've been with the company 4 years, and I've seen huge change in this time. But this was the first ad on Facebook in the very early days. And then I'm sure lots of you saw these, and they were tiny little things. See if this comes through. There we go. And in that box, we've had slight technical issues. In that box was a tiny wee ad, which we had in 2010 for the World Cup for Nike. And jump forward 4 years, and actually you look at something which is full screen video, targeted to people who are going to care about it, targeted to the 350 odd million people who are watching the World Cup and talking about that on Facebook. It was something that was relevant and compelling, but it was a screen size that you can do something with. It was a screen size that we know and we craft work for. Because we're crafting work for people to see it. People don't need to engage with work for it to be good. We're not crafting for engagement. We're crafting for the impression. As we have always done with great work, people don't need to hit a poster on a wall to say that they like it. People haven't ever needed to do that. And people don't need to do that in these platforms either. It is a great thing that comes off the back of good work in which you can see how people respond to it. But it isn't the indicator of what is good or not. So making sure that we're putting things that are compelling in front of people. Because thinking about mobile first and thinking about crafting that, and when you're a creative director, not presenting back this work on a 60-inch screen, but actually presenting it back on a phone, it means you start to think about things in a slightly different way. It means that we think about how the work's going to land with people. We put something really great in front of them because we've thought about the medium in which it's coming through, and we haven't just adapted this from somewhere else. And it's a bit harder, and it's a new thing, but I would ask of the ECDs to make sure that that's how you're signing stuff off, because I promise you'll spot things which don't work in this medium, but they should. And it's an editing job, or it's rethinking how we can do this. And the reality of what works here is trying things. And we as an industry have been slightly hamstrung at times by delivery schedules. We must do this 18 months out, and we have to deliver this thing to the retailer 6 months out. This is what we must do. And so we've had these enormous, great big lead times, and we've Millward Brown tested everything to pieces. And I still want the work to be great, but I think you can feel that by testing it. You can test things on this platform so quickly. You can put things in front of a couple of hundred people and see how they react to things. You can even build the TV ad in this way. You can test jokes, you can test lines, you can test copy. But you can do that by feeling it. And you as a creative can actually feel what's going on. So doing and listening and learning from it's important. And this craft comes in lots of different ways. And yes, there's times at which you want to be responsive. And timeliness is a key part of relevancy. So if you're doing a catwalk show in your Burberry and you're backstage and you're picking the right pictures, you then actually just serve them to people in albums so they can flick through them like they would a magazine. They can browse these and they can absorb them in that way. Or if you're Hugo Boss and you're thinking about how the work is delivered through Instagram, well, you're actually then putting that out there and thinking about the craft of how this comes through and thinking that actually it needs to respect the platform and how people are using the platform. Or if you start looking at things like this, so this was for Guerlain in Paris. And this was for a perfume launch. And they played out beautiful ads, well-crafted work, targeted to the right people. And they were able to deliver this through and then think about what the extra content might look like. And then you start to see how people respond to it. But you're serving to hundreds of thousands and millions of people content which is actually going to open them up, which is going to make them smile, which is going to make them laugh, and actually will make them actually do something with the brand. We're going to turn awareness and affinity into action. So when you look at look at this, and you look at, say, this is something we've done recently with Yves Saint Laurent, from a fragrance perspective, serving people the films, but then what you can do is you can take all of the people who've just seen that film and serve them something else, and you could serve them the next part of the story. But here, we were able to serve them a way of actually redeeming a sample. A very simple, auto-fill, 1-2-step process, which was light, but we used that intent, we used that awareness in advance to make sure that people could see it. So it matters. This is stuff that drives business. This is stuff that drives the things that we're being challenged to do fundamentally, which is move affinity, move awareness, move business sales. And it means that we can actually do this in a way in which we know people have seen things that we can craft great work for them. When I look at the work that's coming through, I think there's probably a few different buckets. And as there always have been, I'm a complete advertising geek, and I've studied lots about how the various different mediums came up and through. And this is a very similar meme of how TV came through as well. So understanding and utilizing the medium, the message and the tension being actually the use of the medium. So this is using things like facial profilers and who did you look like, what celebrity did you look like, or what dog did you look like, or like-based vending machines so we can make sure that they're actually meaningful for people. Or this is Whopper Sacrifice, again, which was a fantastic piece of work about 2-3 years ago, and actually the creative who delivered this is now working on our team, using the platform in a way in which people found funny and light and interesting, but also using it in a way in which was touched the humanity of it. And this was a fantastic piece that came from Nescafé out of Paris, from Publicis. And I'll show you the film.
Je regarde par la fenêtre et je vois un type avec 2 tasses de café dans la main. Je vois arriver Arnaud. C'est pas possible.
Il s'est assis, il m'a dit bon, on va boire un café.
Ça m'a fait retomber 25-30 ans en arrière.
Romeo, Juliet, balconies in the way, making O's with a cigarette. It's Juliet.
Je l'avais demandé en ami. Et depuis, on n'avait jamais échangé.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Nous sommes amis Facebook, tous les deux. Et je vous connais pas. Hein. D'ailleurs, vous aussi, vous me connaissez pas.
On s'entendait très très bien quand on était gamin. Et puis après, forcément, la vie veut que les chemins se séparent un peu.
Ah non, j'y crois pas. Tu me reconnais tout de suite, toi.
Putain, malgré ces années, tu vois.
Moi, ça fait 3 ans que je suis partie en Suède et je trouvais ça génial qu'ils viennent juste boire un café avec moi.
Quand il est arrivé et qu'on s'est revus, oui, là, on s'est redécouvert, on s'est reposé des questions qu'on ne se serait jamais posées sur Facebook.
Et on s'est bien marré parce qu'il avait peur d'aller marcher sur la glace. C'était génial d'avoir fait ça avec lui.
Ça vaut tout l'or du monde.
Je trouve que chacun de nous devrait faire ça au moins une fois dans sa vie.
Aujourd'hui, bah oui.
Attends, ah, c'est bon. Voilà.
So it was lovely, right? But it really focused on the humanity. It focused on these connections, and it focused on bringing that to life. It focused on it in a way in which was just done really seamlessly. It felt so natural and authentic because that's the way in which it was crafted. It thought about how people were going to receive it and then built out these stories and delivering video in a really compelling, lovely way. The other thing that, again, this sounds probably very obvious, but personal matters. Having something which is actually going to impact you matters. And a couple of years ago, we started this by looking at how you could understand the use of data to be able to send people different pictures and memories of their life. And the Museum of Me, I think, was a fantastic approach at that. This year with Amnesty over in New Zealand, this is a thing called Trial by Timeline. And it's just a fabulous program to be able to bring forward real-world issues, to say, if you did the behavior, led the way in which you lead your life normally, this is how you'd be punished in various different countries around the world. Or with Coca-Cola in the US, and they were able to take a key TV and actually think about, you know what, if we serve this to people, there's different characters portrayed in this TV ad. If we serve this to people who looked a bit like those characters, then actually we can make this resonate more. And really, they were able to do this, they were able to split it up into a number of different target audiences and serve just by changing the front frame of how the video was delivered to people on Facebook and the line of copy. They were able to radically increase affinity for their film and make it so much more resonant, because it became something, instead of one big universal ad, it was something that was relevant for people and was personalized to them. Or even the work that we did around our anniversary earlier on this year, our look back video. And this was just about bringing your moments to life of your time on Facebook. And it was funny, it was shared, and it was light, but it was just a capturing of people's moments. And equally this is a program that is currently live with Bose. And I'll show you the film and give you a bit of background later on.
Well, 結構自分に自信がないんですよ、私。なんか落ち込んじゃったりとかしてる時に、もう引きこもるんじゃなくて、クラブ行っていい音聞いて。
It's sexy, it's cool, but it's not just that. It's more independent, it's powerful, and it's our expression.
もう自分もなんか女の人の体一つでこんなに人を感動させることができるんだ、このダンス何みたいな。
Every man was straight and clean, bossa blanc. You not turn like a meal, bossa blanc.
So these were put together thinking about who was going to receive them, serving them to people who cared about music or cared about certain genres of music. As they went live, we were able to test how the films were landing with the different audiences. Using that data, using the insight, using the targeting to be able to craft these films as they were going out. And ensure that we're learning as we build the rest of the series out, the kind of things that people are reacting to. And then using current behavior to amplify that as well. So providing Spotify playlists, looking at how people want to engage with the other elements around these films. And working with a partner like Vice, who shoot things from a very authentic perspective. They're the right people to be going against this target audience as well. Meant that you're able to create a very nimble production process, but one which is done that is actually serving against great quality of the films. Craft matters, and I hope it matters, and I'm sure it matters to everybody in this room, in your day jobs, for everything that you're doing. And outside of that, it's the stuff that we're critical on every single piece of work that comes out. And I think craft matters enormously here. In fact, it is a platform which rewards craft. The more that people are interested in your work, and the less people actually penalize or X out the work, the more people will see at a lower price. We reward creativity. And we reward craft. And so I think craft we see in multiple different ways, and these are just a few examples. Beauty Inside, just lovely, really lovely films. Again, I think we're in the 4th year of these now. Well-crafted, insightful, served to people in a beautiful way, really resonant. The Oreo work that came out 2 years ago, standout craft, which is able to deliver into people's feeds all around the world and make a statement about the brand. The Léon Vivienne, which was great work by DDB out of Paris. This is a launch for a new World War I exhibition for the Musée de la Grande Guerre. And instead of just sending people out invites. They told the story of a soldier, and they went back through his diaries and did this beautiful sequence over a number of months, showing his tales and tribulations, done in with great craft and great care, and it really landed well. Or Wendy's and the launch of the brioche burger in the US. Again, really funny films, well put up, understanding how people are going to react and actually playing off of that. Or even the work with Heineken. And this was out of the US for Newcastle Brown Ale. And I'll play it to you and then talk about actually the work that went in behind it. This was work by Droger out of New York.
Let's begin with Super Bowl 48. Super Bowl 48.
The average 30-second spot's going for a whopping $4 million, $134,000 a second.
This year was set to be the biggest big game ever. The perfect stage for Newcastle Brown Ale to sell tons of beer. Except Newcastle didn't have the money to advertise in the big game. And even if we did, we didn't have permission to be on or anywhere near the big game. So with the help of our Facebook page, we set out to hijack the game. This is the story of the mega huge ad Newcastle would have made if we could have. We started with teasers for our trailers.
Gird your loins. Battle apes. Party sharks. Friendship.
Our teasers for the ad we would have made got more press than most real big game teasers. And then we revealed videos of the mega huge stars that would have been in our mega huge ad. Big game champion Keyshawn Johnson.
And why would they even draw this up?
An Academy Award nominated Anna Kendrick.
Newcastle Brown Ale, the only beer that ever promised me a high-paying role in a commercial and then backed out at the last second like a bunch of
The campaign took off.
Anna Kendrick's Not a Super Bowl spoof for Newcastle Ale also going viral.
They wanted to make a commercial about how they couldn't afford to make a commercial.
But it's spirited. It's spunky. Yeah. I like it. Let's take a look at this Newcastle ad.
It's a fake Super Bowl spot that's never airing, that's online, and all the prep that goes for it. So, I mean, there's a lot of back to it. It's really brilliant.
How about that? Who knew Anna could be so funny?
To prove just how good our mega ad would have been, we showed it to real focus groups. And then we made films showing their real reactions.
What do you think of Newcastle now?
Feels a little desperate.
This ad is pretty hilarious.
This ad is not hilarious.
Like, what the hell's going on?
But we weren't finished. Just days before the game, as other brands released their big spots online, we capitalized on the moment by releasing the storyboard for the mega expensive ad we would have made.
The power of partying destroys the robot like boff. It's beautiful. You would have cried in front of all your friends.
Then came the big game itself. And even though we didn't have a real big game ad to air, that didn't stop us from making mega huge versions of everyone else's ads and releasing them seconds after the real ads ran. In the end, we received more than 600 earned media placements, earning more than 1 billion impressions. We received over 10 million views across 15 pieces of content and became a #1 trending topic on Facebook 2 days in a row, ahead of even the big game itself. And we earned a 416% lift in brand conversation compared to the biggest beer in America's 187% average, all with 1/30th of their budget. The commercial we would have made was named one of the top big game commercials of the year by almost every major media outlet and commentator. The first time ever for a commercial that didn't actually run in the big game. So by not running our ad in the big game and hijacking the hype, Newcastle Brown Ale proved that you don't have to actually be in the big game to win the big game.
So what was clever about this was that the media team, the creative team, the client sat in a room across the whole of this period as the work was going live. They were crafting work, testing work, and they had multiple bits of work which when they tested them, people didn't react very well to them. And these were mostly actually, in the retelling of the story, that the creatives thought were the best and funniest bits of work. They had to have the humility to say, you know what, we're going to go with that work because actually it's really landing home with the people we want it to land with. And so by working together with the media team and working together, like literally in the room with the brand team as well, They were able to really react to the work and make sure they were putting the right things out on people. And they were testing this and learning from it. And they created a fantastic campaign. But there was a lot of science that went into that craft. There was a lot of work that had to go in behind it to make sure it landed in the right way. The final piece is about real-world connections. We'll go through this very, very fast. So this is about how do you work as a corporate to make sure you can actually give your money to the right people, and that the people who belong to your bank, how can they influence where that money goes? Or Small Business Saturday, which is now all around the world, but this is about making sure that you can put people's high streets and you can put people's towns at the forefront of what's important. Bentley Burial is this amazing bonkers case from Brazil where a very famous, very rich guy in Brazil was threatening to bury his Bentley. And actually it was to actually drive acknowledgement of donations of organs. But they were able to use the trigger, they were able to use people's humanity, people's connections, to make sure that this was something which they rallied against. And then when they saw what the reality was of it, they thought it was very clever, and they understood and stepped into it as a campaign. Or even with people's passions for something. And this was work we did with McDonald's across the summer on something called Fry Football. And Fry Football was shot overnight, every night, across the whole of the World Cup. And as the games were finished, we were storyboarding the work out. We were getting the client to approve it. It was being shot, edited, graded, sound mixed in 5.5, 6 hours. Getting the client back up at 5 o'clock in the morning to approve before it went out to 35 countries and beyond. It actually ended up going to 158 countries around the world. The key thing here was amazing pre-production, but also was having the right client. Having the right client and right legal people who understood if you want to do things fast, well, actually, you have to trust that the work is going to come out in the way in which you've agreed, and that actually your role is to help it go through and help it come out the other end with the parameters fully set. So this is what I'm really proud of, and I'm so proud of it, I'm going to put an England match up in front of you just to humiliate me as well.
Football.
So doing things real time is hard, but it's very rewarding. But it was something we learned a lot from this process. And I think it's something which there's an aspiration to do things real time, and you have to set the processes up behind it to get the quality of the craft landing the right way. And thinking again about mobile, thinking how this is landing with different people, setting up the process to make sure it can be translated. And this 135 million people saw this work, and about 70–80% of those through mobile. This was crafted mobile first, every single element of it. And we really looked at that. And this is what I look at for everything we do, is this mixture of art and science. And I think that's what we all can be. This is something which they've never met before. It's something that we've kept out of the agencies. But actually, the best craft creatives at the moment are really stepping in and understanding what it is that I need to know, actually what's going on. They can feel the work as it's going out, and they can respond to people, and they actually have a great sense for what's happening. I think this is a really exciting time. I think this is a truly revolutionary time to be in this industry. And the brilliant thing is that we're shifting from this place where we don't have to focus on digital as this technological thing. We can focus on the people. We can focus on the humanity that sits behind it, and that's what we've always done. Great insights, well-crafted, putting brilliant work which has core craft credentials, well put in front of the right people at the right place at the right time. And I don't think this is necessarily that, I'm not challenging that everyone's afraid. I would just say that we need to, as an industry, we've got this great opportunity now to make the use of this time and make the use of this data. and make the use of the possibilities and the connections and the humanity that sits behind it. And we can create really great work out there and go and do stuff. And now I can let you all go and have your beers and wine, and I think that's the end of tonight. Thank you very much.